You there, Clint?
Welcome to today's Silicon Slopes Town Hall. As we get started here, I just want to, acknowledge a few people and talk about a little bit about what's kind of going on behind the scenes here at Silicon Slopes within the organization. And when I talk about Silicon Slopes, I'm talking about the whole community of tech companies. We have a major announcement coming up here around a variety of different things. Stay tuned to slopeservice.com to learn more about that. But I want to acknowledge the leadership of a few folks who have gotten us to the point we're at. I don't know that we've ever seen the collaboration and coming together that we're seeing right now, and you certainly haven't seen it in any other state up to this point. I want to acknowledge Nomi Health CEO Mark Newman, who's on the call. You hear from him every time on these town halls. Mark has been an unbelievable leader here, and Nomi Health has really led the way on this testing and the variety of different things that we're getting together around PPE, which is personal protective equipment, and everything he's doing. Just Mark, I just want to acknowledge you and Nomi Health. The announcement we'll make here in the next 24 hours couldn't have happened without Mark, and we'll go into detail on that here soon. I also want to acknowledge Dave Elkington, who got roped into a situation, and now it's consumed his entire life. And without Dave Elkington, who's the founder of Inside Sales, now Zant, none of this would be possible either. I also want to acknowledge Josh James, CEO of Domo, and the whole team at Domo for everything that they've done. They have, they've built this tracker. They've also built something else, which we'll announce here soon. And if it wasn't for Domo and everything that they're doing, we would, we wouldn't be where we are today through Silicon Slopes and through Slope Serves. And I also, again, want to acknowledge Qualtrics CEO Ryan Smith, and who has built a few surveys and a number of different things, again, that we'll announce here over the next 24 hours that I think is critical and is a really big deal. Slopeserves.com, there is amazing things coming together through this community, through the Silicon Slopes community, through the tech community, and through the leadership of so many. That I just want to acknowledge. And the last person I want to acknowledge is Traeger Grill's CEO, Jeremy Andrus, who has been chairing our economic response committee through Slope Serves and is just doing an incredible job on that front. With that, I want to go to and start this whole thing off with my good friend, Domo CEO, Josh James, who I love, and I want to get an update, Josh, from you on how this is affecting Domo and some of the various things and initiatives that you've put out since all this started. So, Josh, take it away.
All right. Am I live?
I think you're live.
Okay, great. Thanks, Clint. Well, excited to be here and give the update. It's been one heck of a couple of weeks, that's for sure. Clint, right back at you on the leadership. Thank you very much. It's been such a joy to see everyone come together and to have a way for us to do that with Silicon Slopes, and leadership that you and your whole team have provided have really been what's made it possible. It's been such a bizarre time. My heart goes out to people that are suffering right now. We all are hearing stories. We know people that know people. And, today I found out that somebody that's very near and dear to me and close to me, that they're and they live here in Utah, that their son has tested positive, and he has a lot of pre-existing conditions, and they're very, very worried. So it is really scary. We were on the front end of this at Domo in terms of, when we had people go home, work from home, when we pulled travel, I think we were the very first big conference, certainly big B2B conference, to pull their big user conference, Domopalooza in our case, and make it, postpone it or make it remote. And, not something you're necessarily proud of for being first on, but it's just, what happened is I went to Japan at the beginning of this, and we had 12 cases of coronavirus in the US and 12 cases in Japan. And so I was like, well, I'm taking the same risk in Japan if I am here. And I got to LAX, and the Japan Airlines flight terminal was across the way from all the Chinese airlines. And all the Japanese people and all the Chinese people were wearing masks. and there's just a couple flights that are at the midnight hour out of LAX, and it's all the flights going to Asia. And I swear I was the only person in LAX in America without a mask on. And it really jarred me. And I served my mission for the LDS Church in Japan. So Japan feels like a second home to me. And I get off the plane in Japan, and I've never seen this kind of coverage with masks. There's always 10% of the people who have masks on in Japan, but we're talking 100%. It wasn't 99.5. It was 100% coverage of people in masks. And so I'm like, it freaked me out. I'm like, I'm canceling everything. I went to my hotel room. I didn't do any of the meetings that I had. I did one dinner meeting with the guy that runs Japan for us, and I flew home. And it was jarring. And so I just started reading everything and kind of got on the front end of this. But what's been, and now we're doing work from home, and we're, business is definitely different than it has been. Thankfully, we have a recurring revenue business. So in the one sense, that's good. On the other hand, we've got, customers that were in retail that had a big retail presence. There's nothing happening. Restaurant chains, there's nothing happening. And a lot of businesses, are not spending money. On the flip side of that, there's companies, there's healthcare companies, there's government agencies that are spending money, and just trying to adapt as fast as you possibly can has been a real challenge, and adapting all of our sales plays and marketing plays. I think we've heard consistently that Zoom, you end up, by the end of the day, you worked way more hours than you did less, and you were stuck in your chair all day. And that's definitely been the case. But it's been fascinating to talk to some of our customers. I talked to Abbott Labs today, which they've been in the news for all of the big tests that they're doing, and they can now do them in under 5 minutes. And, hearing about how they're using data to try to understand how to ship out tests, and to get that data back before the labs complain that there's an error, that they can see that error and try to fix it. And seeing everyone try to work remote was fascinating. Also, I tweeted it, and it is about Domo, but everyone knows Domo mostly in Utah anyway, so this isn't a commercial. This is just interesting. My customer Harmons, we talked to them, and if you want to look up some of my tweets, you'll be able to find the Harmons video. But it is so fascinating to see how these grocery store chains are basically competing against each other for food from the distributors. And in this case, because they were a Domo customer, they were able to see what was going off the shelves faster than anyone else, and get their orders in faster than anyone else. They started noticing that there was something going on when all the spam flew off the shelf. And they never would have ordered it. They never would have noticed it, but the data told them that. But they were like, okay, something weird's going on. So that was fascinating. And then lastly, I thought I'd just take a moment and talk about Silicon Slope Serves. It's been so cool to see what's taken place with everybody. I was, at the beginning, we had Domopalooza right in the middle of this, and it was the day of the earthquake of all things. We were supposed to be up at Snowbird, and we were at least going to have a beautiful setting, even though no customers were going to be there. We changed location, beautiful setting, mountain slopes. And 2 days before we were supposed to go up there, boom, that got canceled. They shut down Snowbird. So we're running around with the hair on fire. We went from a full, 3,000 person attending conference in downtown Salt Lake to 2 weeks later, 100% digital, including, all kinds of videos that we filmed all over the place. Leading up to it, going to Pep Boys in Philadelphia, and filming stuff at Swire, taking helicopters all over the place. It was crazy. And we think that we've got it done. And we get up there and we wake up on the day of the earthquake, and people were just crying. People reached their breaking, we can't do this anymore. So that was a crazy day. The place where we ended up filming it in Salt Lake was about a mile from the epicenter of the earthquake. So we were doing our analyst call. We're a public company. We're doing our analyst call in the afternoon when the really big 4-point whatever hit. And there was 3 stories up of warehouse space. And so hanging from chains are these big lights that we have in this production facility. and it's a metal roof. And so when the earthquake starts rumbling, the roof starts popping, loud metal popping. I mean, people are running for cover, and you're looking up and you are actually scared that these giant swinging things are going to come down. And we had like 4 or 5 different camera operators. And when that second one hit, every camera operator bailed. We're live. All the camera operators bail. And the head of production steps onto one camera and kept one camera going. I mean, it was just ridiculous. So I was really focused on that, get done with that, and start paying more and more attention to what's going on with Silicon Slopes serves. And I've been on a few calls leading up to it, and just, you know, seeing what everyone was doing, trying to figure out testing, trying to figure out PPE, everyone just, you know, being entrepreneurial. And so I started paying a little bit more attention, and you know, I heard some people trying to figure some things out, try to help them out, and then realized that there were a lot of people that were trying to get PPE. And you know, I was like, when I heard President Trump say it's kind of every state for himself, I'm like, all right, I'm gonna at least make some phone calls. So I haven't shared this with anybody, but you'll all get a kick out of this, I would guess. So I start making some phone calls. I'm like, I was on the board of a company that shipped everything in from China, hundreds of millions of dollars that we shipped in, and we ended up starting our own factory over there. And you can't own a factory in China. It's got to be Chinese owned. So we own 49% of it. They own 51. We had special people in governments that were on the board of that company. And, you know, then you go to, so I started making some phone calls. I'm like, I know you're used to shipping, not medical supplies, but here's some stuff. Can you find it? And, you know, we kind of worked through it. And we ended up, I think we're about the biggest supplier to the state of Utah now for all this PPE. And it's been a full-time job just on getting PPE in here. But what's been crazy is the guy in charge of procurement at the state of Utah said, you know, we got the order in, and we're shipping all this product in. And he said, I approached the other procurement officers around the country, and I said, hey, should we all band together and get better pricing and lock up some more inventory? And he got a response back from one of the largest states in our country who said, normally I would say yes. But the reality is, given the situation, it is every state for themselves. And I'm not going to collaborate with you. I'm a competitor to you right now. And we're all trying to get our equipment, and we're all trying to get our personal, you know, personal protective devices. So it's it has been as crazy as you read about it. I've been in the middle of that one. And you know, when President Trump called it the China virus, a lot of warehouses quit shipping stuff, and they're like, we're going to ship it to other countries. So, you know, then you got to crack through that by finding someone else that's got a relationship. So it has been absolutely nuts. Working from home has been absolutely nuts. The pressure that puts on all of our business has been nuts. I'm a big, I own half of Cubby's restaurants. That's been horrible for our business. You know, you're down 75%. So, you know, it has been really helpful having people do takeout orders, but just seeing the destruction it's doing to people's lives is scary. I do hope that we get it back soon. I think testing, tracing is a big piece of that, and I hope that we can all figure that out soon. But the thing that I guess I deliver a message more than anything else, this is about humankind. This is about us all coming together. You know, I saw that you know, since the beginning of time, it's been about what country are you from, what region are you from, what religion are you from, what tribe are you from, what culture are you from. And this has been the first time in modern history that something's decimated all of those things. And it's about being human, and it's about helping each other. And, you know, when you see the one announcer on TV talking about Cuomo who got, you know, the other guy on CNN that just tested positive, and he starts streaming down tears, I think that's how all of us feel. And I had a daughter that was in France that was around lots of people that were positive. She got tested, thankfully, and she had lots of symptoms, because I know people will rail on me for that, but she went to the doctor, went through the normal process, got tested, but I can't tell you the relief that I had when I found out that she was okay. So it's an emotional time. It's time for us all to band together. I'm proud to be a part of Silicon Slopes. I'm proud to be part of Domo. I'm proud to be a part of this community, and I will do anything and everything I can to get us back to where we need to be. So appreciate you guys taking the time and listening, and hopefully this has been interesting.
Josh, thanks so much for your leadership again, everything you're doing. Can you briefly just touch on the Domo tracker that Domo launched for the coronavirus?
Yeah, so thanks for asking that, Clint. We went out and started seeing all this data out there. So I kind of got my crack team and said, can you guys do something with all the data that's out there? Can we be a central location? So domo.com/coronavirus has, I think, the most extensive data about coronavirus, about COVID-19. And it's been actually good for our business as well, which we all got to survive. So we have to figure that piece out at the same time. But it's gotten most of our customers have been very interested in it. We've got, I think, over 4x the amount of traffic to our tracker than we ever have to our website. And that's been spending a lot of money on marketing. So we get a decent amount of traffic, but it's just been going up and through the roof. And I think the more we can, we've been adding a bunch of stuff to it, but the more we can figure out things like predictive and just help these leaders, our leaders, understand, because they don't. They're politicians. They're good at being politicians. They're good at managing states. They're good at having innumerable conversations that entrepreneurs could never have. But in terms of new problem, go out, tackle it, fix it, go. That's what we're all good at. And so I've been so proud of the state at recognizing that and saying, can you please help us? And, so proud of the community that we have, because this is a true statement. Our community is leading more than any other community in the state of Utah. And this is about saving lives. And that site's about saving lives. Everything that we're doing is about saving lives. And it's not a joke, like it's actually true. If we can get more testing, if we can get more tracing, if we get enough equipment here, if we can get enough vents here, if we can help people maintain their jobs so that they have money, all these things are saving lives. And, I'm exhausted, but I'm in the game right now.
Yeah, it really is incredible how many people have stepped up in our community. And I know, these things can get exhausting for those watching it, just the countless thank yous that we all give each other. But, most of the people I mentioned aren't sleeping. It's around the clock. I'm getting text messages like at 3 a.m. in the morning. What's happening here is just unbelievable. Josh, I want to stay on because I want to come back to you on leadership and advice you would have for CEOs and those watching this right now. But I want to go to Jeremy Andrus, CEO of Traeger Grills, for a second and talk about this economic response committee that you're chairing, Jeremy, and what we're doing currently and the progress you've made up to this point.
Hey, Clint. And first of all, a big high five to Josh. Boy, that guy has more passion and energy for this, and he is doing so much work behind the scenes. We've I got to tell you, this whole thing is moving fast, and it has to move fast, and that's because it is a tough moment for small businesses right now. We have been able to pull together a committee of some really, really fantastic business leaders. They are committed to the community. They're all busy and they want to be helpful. We built a plan and we organized around it. And it was interesting. Yesterday we were on a call and someone said, we got to move fast. We've got the PPP loans. Friday, small businesses begin to apply, and we completely reverse course. And it's sort of an interesting, it's an interesting thing as a CEO. You build a plan and you want to stick to it, but something more important and more urgent came along. And so we are sprinting to help small businesses literally over the next couple of days. I think we've got a great opportunity that we're focused on right now.
Jeremy, can you talk about, and I know you're learning details and we'll have more details forthcoming on this, but these SBA loans and ways that small business owners can get information on how to apply, how to get this money, how urgent it needs to be, who to work with on it. Can you give an update? And again, like I said, you won't have all the answers here. We're going to be
Sure.
pushing things out through Silicon Slopes, but what do we know so far?
Yeah, I mean, I guess first of all, I would say, we heard Senator Romney describe this pool of $350 billion that the federal government has made available. There are two different types of loans that small businesses can apply for. The one that is certainly most compelling, it's a PPP loan that's done through the SBA. Effectively, what it allows a small business to do is borrow 2.5 times their monthly payroll of their business, and at a very attractive interest rate. And if they put it to work by June 30th, it's forgiven. They actually don't have to pay it back. And so the urgency that we feel here is that this is such an attractive federal program that there are a finite number of dollars. And there are going to be millions of small businesses around the country that are going to be going after the same pool of dollars. And so, we really want to help these small businesses understand, where do you go? How do you do it? We are building resources on slopeserves.com. We are about to aggressively begin a communication plan tomorrow with content that's very clear and concise. And I guess I would say, in the interim, if you know a small business owner, tell them to reach out to a local bank here in Utah that originates SBA loans. And they're not hard to find. Call your local bank. If they don't, they will tell you who does. And at the risk of this thing getting complicated quickly, your local bank who can originate this can answer all of the questions, and speed matters. This opens up on Friday, and it is important to complete the application quickly and to get to the front of the queue.
Jeremy, real quick, I want you to stay on because we actually have Marla, who's the Utah director of the Small Business Administration, on the line, and we also have John from the SBA as well. And I want to give everyone a quick update on a local company that is doing amazing work on this front, and that is Lendio. And Brock Blake and his team, they have a lot of information on that, and we're going to have a call with Brock and Lendio about this as well. But Jeremy, maybe as we're talking to these SBA folks, if you have any questions on behalf of the Economic Committee, it might be interesting as we're on here for you to do those. But Marla and John, can you talk about this process and ways that small businesses, and particularly Utah business, can get an edge here?
Sure, yeah. So I know that they just mentioned the Paycheck Protection Program loan that's being offered through the SBA. This is actually rolling out on April 3rd to small businesses and on April 10th to independent contractors and self-employed individuals. So we're rolling with this very, very quickly. As you mentioned, there's $349 billion that's set aside for this Paycheck Protection Program loan. It's covering a period of February 15th through June 30th, 2020. And there's various entities that will be eligible to apply for this, including small businesses, of course, tribal businesses, nonprofits, sole proprietors, independent contractors, self-employed individuals, et cetera. And the terms of this loan is basically we're looking at 2.5 times the applicant's average monthly payroll costs over the last 12 months. And you can get a loan for up to $10 million. But one of the things the legislation said is the maturity of the loans could go up to 10 years. However, SBA has capped that maturity at 2 years. So that'll be important for folks to understand when they go to the SBA lenders in the state to request this loan. The interest rate is really low. It's only 0.5%. and the payment can be deferred for the first 6 to 12 months of the loan. I do want to touch on the forgiveness. I think that's a really important point of this. And the covered period for that is 8 weeks from the date of the loan. So once that SBA lender issues the loan to you, that starts the clock ticking. The forgiveness will be equal to the amount spent by the borrower during the covered period, that 8-week covered period, on payroll costs, mortgage, interest, rent, utilities, etc. If the business reduces the number of employees, then the SBA reduces the amount of forgiveness by the same percentage. So again, that's important to keep in mind. But employers that restore their employment numbers and salaries by June 30th, 2020, would experience no reduction in their forgiveness. So again, these loan proceeds can be used for payroll costs, salaries, wages to employees, as long as the wages are less than $100,000. So anything over that would not be covered. The loan also can cover vacation, sick leave, severance, healthcare benefits, retirement benefits, etc. And as I mentioned, it does cover mortgage interest payments, rent, utilities, and that type of thing.
And again, on the line, we have Marla Trolland, the Utah Director of the U.S. Small Business Administration, the SBA. Marla, what advice do you have to Utah companies to get an advantage here? You know, because on Friday, this is going to be every company throughout the country, going after this stuff. How do what advice do you have in terms of like who they should work with and all that type of stuff?
Sure. So on this PPP loan that I was just talking about, $349 billion sounds like a lot of money, but this is going to go quickly. It's on a first come, first served basis, and I really want to make sure that our small businesses in this state get their fair share of that. So, I'm really encouraging businesses to apply and seek out those SBA lenders here in the state to get those applications submitted. Now, what I can tell you is most of the lenders here in the state already are working with SBA, and if they're not, we've already reached out to them, and they're getting on SBA so that they can actually do these loans for small businesses across the state. So most lenders are going to offer these loans. But the other thing I wanted to mention real quickly is our economic injury disaster loans that are offered directly by SBA. We've had a lot of small businesses in the state already apply for those. And I just want to touch on real quick, the loan terms for that are different than this PPP loan that I just mentioned. The loan term for that goes up to, the amount goes up to $2 million instead of the $10 million mark. But the maturity of that loan is 30 years versus the 2 years on the PPP loan. The interest rate for that is 3.75 for small businesses and 2.75 for nonprofits. So what I'm really encouraging business to do is go ahead and apply for that disaster loan. And if you need to consider applying for the PPP loan, you can also do that, and you can roll over your disaster loan into the PPP loan if you choose to, because again, it will be forgiven. One other point is we are also offering an emergency grant through this disaster loan site that's already set up, and that goes up to $10,000. Basically, this is free money, so to speak. In other words, if small businesses apply for this, they won't have to pay it back. Again, that amount goes up to $10,000, and it's covering a period of January 31st, 2020 through December 31st, 2020. And that funding is issued within 3 days of application. So I'm telling businesses, hey, get out there and apply for your emergency grant, apply for your disaster loan, and then consider this PPP loan when it rolls out on the 3rd.
Marla, I'm going to bring in Jeremy Andrus, who's chairing up the Economic Response Committee for Silicon Slopes here. Jeremy, do you want to chime in here with any concerns you're hearing from businesses?
Yeah, well, I guess less on the business side, and I'd love to hear Marla's thoughts on the lenders here in the state. They are going to become overwhelmed quickly. Friday morning, 8:30 a.m., lines are going to start to form outside
Yeah.
of these banks. I guess we worry about those that are manually completing these applications, simply the time that it takes to populate and process and file. How can we, as a Silicon Slopes organization, help support them in building an efficient process to ensure that someone who shows up later in the day on Friday doesn't end up so deep in the stack, whether it's Friday or Monday. We want to make sure that those who are motivated to get in line quickly actually have an opportunity, because these banks don't have such a backlog constraining their ability to complete and submit applications.
Right. No, thank you. That's a good point. We do have a fillable form that's available now for folks to start preparing their applications. But John, did you want to weigh in here?
Yeah, and earlier you talked about, okay, do you have an existing relationship with the lender? So if you're one of these small businesses and have I'd be reaching out to my lender right now, saying, look, we're going to be in there Friday wanting to get this. Also, because this PPP loan is so payroll-based, small business should be getting their payroll records together for the last year. So it'll be based on the last 12 months average. Start getting those records together, get your financials, tax returns together, so that you're ready to provide those to your lender.
Yeah, I know that they're going to ask for the payroll, tax filings, your state filings, and verification of mortgage and utility payments, as well as a certificate from a representative. So they will be asking for that. And again, we have that fillable PDF form available now, and we can get that out to small businesses if they contact us.
Do you have any idea? Well, I have a question here from somebody listening. Do you have any details that can be shared with regards to the holding period for participating lenders? So any details that can be shared with regards to the holding period for participating lenders? Do you have any idea there?
I don't know exactly what they're talking about.
Are they referring to lenders maybe that aren't doing SBA lending right now and getting that turned around quickly? Is that what you're?
Or how long they have to hold it before they sell it on the secondary market, or that kind of?
Yeah, great question. I'm not sure. That's all. Let's get some more details there. Actually, I'm going to bring him in. Ben Davis, come on in and ask this question.
Yeah, so exactly what you just said. How long we're hearing from a couple lenders. Hey, we want to participate. We're just trying to get more details on what the holding period is until it can be moved to the secondary market, or essentially how long they're going to have to keep that on their balance sheet.
Yeah, I'm not aware of any designated holding period that they have to hold it for. As Marla mentioned before, there's a complete payment deferment for the first 6 to 12 months on this loan. However, if it is sold on the secondary market and if the investor won't agree to that deferment period, then SBA has to buy the loan back. So maybe lenders are concerned about selling it on the secondary market too quickly, because then they don't get the borrower won't get the full effect of the deferment.
I think it's just the lender saying, oh, sorry, my unmute.
Yeah, you're still on.
Saying, how quickly will we get reimbursed by the Treasury is what the lenders are asking us. And then maybe as a follow-up question, one of the things they're asking is, will these require wet ink signatures to close them? That was another question we're getting from lenders.
Right. So the question is, how lenders, how quickly will they be reimbursed by the Treasury? And then I think you heard the follow-up there.
So they get reimbursed for a processing fee. The lender does, 5% up to $350,000, 3% between $350,000 and $2 million, and then 1% above that. And SBA is supposed to pay the lender within 5 days of loan disbursement on that. As far as wet signatures, I know that I think we've got a new electronic signature policy going into place or whatever, so it's not as rigid.
And then I just want to clarify, is the advice that we're giving the small business owners to literally go to their bank to line up on Friday to do an in-person application for that? Is that the advice
Well,
on them?
yeah, I mean, if you can get to your lender before then, that would be beneficial so that they know you want to apply for that loan. And like I said, businesses can contact us directly, and we will send them that fillable PDF form, the application form, so that they have it ready for the lender on Friday.
Okay, thank you so much for coming on. As we click some questions here, we might come back to you folks, but I want to go to Domo Health CEO Mark Newman, who I mentioned at the top I don't even know if you've been sleeping, my friend. Everything you've done, during this period, and we have a big announcement here. We're going to roll something out that's pretty major here over the next, 48 hours. But I would love, Mark, if you could go into a little bit of detail on the behind the scenes on how this is all coming together.
Yes, I think the right definition of sleep is passing out when you just keep going and all of a sudden you have to stop. No, it's been a really fantastic experience. I mean, frankly, 3 weeks ago, if none of us knew anything about lab testing, what we did know though was that we had to do something if we banded together, and could do something if we banded together to go pull this thing off and get people in Utah back to work. It's the behind the scenes. How do I say this nicely? We aren't doctors, and so sometimes doctors don't always appreciate our opinion. As I say, the difference between God and doctors is that God doesn't generally think he's a doctor. And as we kind of go through that element, we fight over data, we fight over facts, we fight over our not models and distribution models and you name it. And I'll tell you, I will go to the ends of the earth to make sure that Slope Serves is on the winning side of that battle, that until we bridge the confidence gap of people being able to go back and live life, and we think the path to living life is through abundant available testing that's cheap for everyone, right? And so we know, like, I can get tested anytime. I don't have anxiety going into my office. I don't have anxiety sending my kids to school. I don't have anxiety going to church. I don't, you name it. We don't have this solved. And at another point of it, how you feel will be more important than what a model tells you. So if you want to understand our entire behind the scenes argument and knife fight as we're going through here, and both Clint and I have ridiculous smiles on our faces right now because we know what we've had to go through. It starts there. We have had to, our approach, and the only way we were going to pull this off was open sourcing healthcare. And the way that we, the same dynamic of Microsoft versus Linux and data centers versus AWS really is happening here in healthcare over the last 60 days, where we had to get and essentially rebuild a supply chain about something that we didn't know what we were talking about on, and start first with tests and the ability to execute those tests, lining up a lab partner, then swabs, then transport kits, then extraction kits, then. And as Josh mentioned, the dynamics of states fighting against states for supply. How about inside of a state fighting against other entities, for supply? And so we just had to keep iterating, pivoting, moving here. And what we've got to, and what we'll be talking through a lot over the next couple of days, is a open source program with multiple samples, multiple extraction kits, multiple transport kits, multiple tests, multiple machines, multiple this, all cross-validated against each other, because it was the only way we were going to scale. Marry that with messaging, and awareness, and knock on wood, we build something that's the first in the nation way of pulling this off.
Well, what we're trying to do simply through Slope Serves and under your leadership, Mark, on the Health Response Committee, is make sure every Utahn who wants to get tested can get tested. And, you know, I think over the next, you've done a phenomenal job in, you know, getting us so much closer to that goal. And I think over the next 48 hours, I would highly recommend everyone watch the governor's press conference tomorrow at 1 p.m. As we, you know, over the next 48 hours, roll out what you and so many others have been building. I again want to acknowledge Dave Elkington for everything he's done, Josh, who we're going to bring back here in a moment, and Qualtrics CEO Ryan Smith, everyone who's put so much time and effort. I can't actually describe how much time and energy all of these people have put into this and making this happen. And what we're about to do, I think, is just unbelievable. I think we'll be the first state to do it, thanks to you. How has this changed Nomi Health? I mean, it seems like you're all COVID-19 all the time now.
Yeah, I mean, when we first sent out the email that started a new full-time job, it was really, you know, Nomi Health as a company's entire thesis is what can you do when you go direct on everything in healthcare, right? We just think there's a whole lot of kind of middlemen and bureaucracy and carriers and insurance companies and you name it that kind of block you from getting the care that you actually need at the cost you actually deserve. You know, in America, we think we pay 40% too much for healthcare, and that's because too many companies take a cut. And so it's actually been a fantastic case study and learning experience around how quickly can we go direct. So if you think about it, we went direct to testing, direct to manufacturers, direct to labs, direct to, you know, kind of everything. And you know, I think the right example for what we've proven out here in the state, as well as it's for Nomi, is kind of the exact same story of Clayton Christensen and disruptive innovation. We have essentially put together a low-cost alternative that the incumbent providers just laugh at because they think, oh, whatever, why shouldn't we be able to charge $200 or $2,000 for a test? Right? Why shouldn't we be able to use our giant Thermo Fisher machines and our automated labs to do this? And so they look at it as a lesser product, you know, kind of chapter one of Innovator's Dilemma. And next thing you know, we're going to take over testing capacity and, you know, and be the thing that's there to solve this problem. And so it's been fantastic learnings for Nomi. Nomi is fortunately in a different stage of the growth curve. We're early, but we've hired 5 people this week. And we want to be at somewhere at least 100 people-ish around the end of the year and be ramping up quickly. So fortunately, this has been a terrific case study. Our team has banded together. We've been able to apply what our thesis and hypothesis is, and we're just grateful for the position that we're in.
Well, Mark, again, I just want to thank you so much. And what you're about to hear and what's about to be announced would not happen without Mark Newman. And I know you're going to get a lot of praise over the next, 48 hours. So I want to be the first to give that to you. And I, again, like Dave Elkington, Ryan Smith, Josh James, Jeremy Andrus, everyone who's put so much time into this. Thank you all so much.
Josh Walker on my team. He's
Josh Walker
dying early.
There's so many people that have got us to the point we're at today. And trackslopeserves.com and the social media channels. Make sure you check into the governor's press conference at 1 p.m. tomorrow. I want to go back to you, Josh James, about how leaders should be thinking about navigating this moment right now. How do you lead a team during an economic crisis that I don't know any of us have seen in our lifetimes?
Yeah, unfortunately, I've been through 2 dramatic times. When the bubble burst, when Omniture was just getting going, I still remember very vividly the day when we let go 48 people 2 weeks before Christmas, no severance. It was just try to save the company, and it's horrible. I mean, it is definitely still my worst day that I've had as a business leader, and we were really grateful that 4 years later, we were able to get them their severance plus a generous interest, which, I was almost embarrassed to send it to them because I was so embarrassed what happened in the first place. But everyone was didn't expect it. And so they were really happy for it. But it was, you deal with those kind of situations and it reminds you, the pressure that you have as a leader, because you can't shirk right now. You got to step up to the plate. You got to be thoughtful, and you hear it from everybody. And it's true. When you cut, you got to cut deeper than you think you should. It's much better to have a company. You got to think a little bit past, these next couple months. It's much better to have a company that is hiring, that is growing, versus a company that does a cut and then does another cut and then does another cut. Like, the mental exhaustion and the attitude around the place is so different. So, if you are in a situation where you have to cut, then that's what I'd be thinking about. I mean, I think already, everybody is saying, don't pay anything that's not absolutely necessary. A lot of small businesses don't recognize that you got a month of cash by just not paying your bills. And that's horrible, and that means some people in here, I'm telling people to not pay other people that are in here, but that's just kind of what happens. And, the ones that are the most aggressive at that are the ones that end up surviving. I mean, you get in situations, and I'll speak to maybe some of the companies that might be hurting the worst, but you can, another thing at Omniture that we had to do, and I'm embarrassed to having gone through it, but we got down to where we had, I think it was like, let's call it $10 million in payables. And we only had $1.7 million in cash, and there were no new deals happening. And we negotiated those $10 million in payables down 10, 15 cents on the dollar. And I was surprised that it was legal to even do that. I'm surprised you can go to somebody and say, I know I signed a contract and I owe you $100,000, but I can pay you $15,000, but you have to agree that I'm not going to pay you anymore. I can't believe that's legal enforceable. But the reality is, I'm going to either pay you the $15,000 or you're going to get in a long line of people that come after me when I go bankrupt. And that argument is, should not be said disingenuously, should be real. But if that is the case, then you can negotiate a lot of your stuff down. And then if you're in a position where you can go back and make those people whole, then I think, you should. But, those are some like the drastic things to do. There's also, you see a lot of people take payroll and say 25% cuts for everybody, and maybe more for the executives, or maybe it's 10% cuts and then 25% for executives. But the one thing that's good about that is it's instant cash savings. There's no severance associated with it. And these are horrible things to talk about. I don't want to get the blame for all this, but it's just what people have to do to survive. And then as soon as you can bring it back, you bring it back. And if you're in a position to be able to pay that back with interest, great. Some people aren't, and it's just kind of what happens. And so, I'd say that's on the expense side. On the revenue side, this is where you prove your mettle. This is where you prove if you're truly an entrepreneur, and if you truly belong in a startup or not, because there's money to be had out there. It's just really hard to get. And, can you adapt and change your business to adopt to the businesses and the verticals that are doing well? And almost everybody says, when you go through a crisis like this, the best companies are the ones that end up coming out on top. And I kind of, I like when my competitors are struggling, because that gives, a playing field that I can try to come out on top. So it's a horrible time. The emotional toll, the human toll right now is unspeakable. If you put that aside and try to figure out how to run your business and protect your livelihood, then I would do anything and everything I had to do, and I would be extremely aggressive about it. And that's from living through bubble bursting and living through 2008.
Jeremy, I'd love for you to jump in here and talk about, different strategies that, people who are running companies and leaders and executives should be thinking about.
Yeah, look, this is something that we've talked a lot about internally, and the leader is not just the CEO. A company CEO needs to model good leadership, but also needs to ensure that his or her team knows exactly how do they create this voice of confidence in a troubled time, and how do you create alignment and create it quickly? I loved, Josh was talking about things that are super practical in nature. What do you care about most in a moment like this? Cash. This thing is going to pass, but the cash trough is going to be deep. And so figuring out, how do I stretch my payables? How do I collect my receivables, accelerate that? How do I decide who to negotiate with and who not to negotiate with? And I think as a leader, sitting down with your team and having a very, very clear vision for what gets me beyond this moment, how do I rally them, how do we align on it, and how do we do it quickly? It's just basic blocking and tackling and really thorough and continual communication.
I appreciate both of you bringing it. I think that, that's top of mind for everyone on this call who's running a business or has employees or is an employee, is how do we manage what's going on right now and get through this. I want to give an update real quick on some numbers. And, we have this segment here where we answer some questions that have been submitted. And so I want to go to that. So the first question we've had is around what is being done about mortgages and rents, and what about student loans. Governor Herbert today announced a rental deferment and a hold on evictions until May 15th. Student loans through the federal government are suspended through September 30th. Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac have been ordered to suspend foreclosures and evictions for 60 days. Both companies are also offering a mortgage delay for up to 12 months of those hit by the pandemic. The best advice is to check directly with your lender or landlord. I want to commend Governor Herbert for his leadership in, deferring rental payments. I think that's incredible. What's being, what he did there today in that order. I also want to, answer this other question around, do we have enough data to confidently predict how long this pandemic should last? No. But the University of Washington has a prediction model you might find interesting. We're going to tweet that out now on @SiliconSlopes. So everybody go check that out. We've been getting this question a lot, which I find interesting. Which is this the broadest infringement of business and personal rights in United States and Utah history? That's the question we've been getting a lot. Is it the broadest infringement of business and personal rights in US and Utah history? I think the answer is no, but I don't know. And here are the current conditions as of April 1st, 2020. Known cases are currently 1,012. Known deaths is 7. Total tested is 20,155. We're still testing less than 2,000 Utahns per day, but stay tuned for an update on that front over the next 24, 48 hours. Make sure you tune into the governor's press conference at 1 p.m. I think that, you'll be pleased with some of the things that are being announced there, and some of the things that folks like Mark Newman and Josh James and Ryan Smith and Jeremy Andrus and especially Dave Elkington have been working on for so long. So that's it for the town hall today. We do these every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 4 p.m. Make sure you tune in. Thank you all for joining, and we'll see you on Friday.